everyone. It's great to be here today. I'm based in Toronto, but I'm a recent Canadian. I'm actually American, so apologies for lacking French. But bonjour, I was said. That will get a good appreciation. So we're here to talk about Gen AI, and generative AI is a technology that, like none other, that has disrupted us in the last few years. It is swiftly becoming a disruptor for disruptors. I think many fintechs here today would find that we're being disrupted now. And it is turning the business models upside down in a way that everybody suddenly, financial institutions including, are able to have an opportunity to become a platform-based business. Everybody can be a version of Netflix or NVIDIA. And when I say platform-based, I don't just mean IT platform or technology platform. Business platforms are converging with IT and technology platforms and are creating new conversations at C-level suite, where before AI and data were topics for conversations for IT and technology professionals. Now your CEOs, your line of business leaders in financial services suddenly want to talk about data and data governance and technology platforms. I was last week participating at Cybus conference. It's a premier banking conference with 11,000 bankers from around the world and fintechs that service them, and mostly business leaders and operations, less so traditionally technology participants or technology partners internally from financial services would come to those conferences. And the biggest learning from the conference was that platforming their lines of businesses and financial services is now really focusing on open ecosystems. And that is because Gen AI is enabling those ecosystems. So those are the topics we'll discuss here today. I'm very excited to welcome a very distinguished panel here today. We will be talking about the future of finance, harnessing the power of generative AI. And on the panel with us are Jean-François Bérubé, who is a Vice President of Quantitative Strategies and Data Science at CDPQ. Alain Bergeron, who is a Senior Vice President and Information Technology, or CIO at IA, or Industrial Alliance Financial Group. And Danielle Grossi, who is the Chief Technology Officer from Desjardins Group. Just a few words about each of the panelists. Daniel Grossi is, in his career, has spent more than 20 years working in IT operations management, infrastructure services, project delivery, strategic planning, and transformation. Prior to joining Desjardins in 2016, he was more than 15 years at Bell Canada, where he was a leader across several key roles, and his final role there was General Manager of IT Service Operations. And he recently joined Desjardins as Director of IT Project Delivery. Then he was appointed the Vice President of Operations Services Management a year later. And he has experience cross-sector services, across digital and omni-channel, capacity IT division, and in his role since June 2022 as the Chief Technology and Operations Officer, he is really focusing on maximizing the value of technology and ensuring resilience and agile IT operations. Welcome, Daniel. Alain Bergeron is a CIO at IA Financial Group since December 2021. He's responsible for the development and implementation of Group's digital strategy, as well as the evolution of the global infrastructure that supports the organization's growth in digital era. He began his career there as Vice President of Digital Optimization and has been responsible for large digital transformation program across the whole group. And also had a role of Chief Data Officer with added duties. So very extensive career as well. And Jean-François Bérubé, who's the Vice President of Quantitative Strategies and Data Sciences, CDPQ, had over 16 years of professional experience in digital technologies and quantitative investing, held various leadership roles across Desjardins Global Asset Management and later joining CDPQ. So thank you again, all three, for joining us for this panel. I joined IBM just 3 years ago, and prior to that, I was in corporate and investment banking for 30 years, so switched the roles with you a little bit. So we will start with just the very strategic, high-level question, but I'm sure, Daniel, you would probably give us a very focused answer. What, in your opinion, is different about generative AI, and why finance organizations cannot ignore it?
Well, thank you very much for the question. It's a very large question, by the way, and in a nutshell, I'd say that you were talking about financial services, but any organization, I'm of the strong belief if we choose to ignore AI or generative AI, we're going to be left behind. What do I mean by being left behind? There's a writer who wrote up the Space Odyssey. His name is Arthur Clarke, and he sums it up properly. He said, any advanced technologies are indistinguishable from magic. I'm not trying to associate AI with magic, but that being said is, if we take a look at any organization that has launched the product, OpenAI launched ChatGPT in November, and within 2 months had over 100 million users. Can we choose to ignore that type of rate of adoption? I think it would probably be not in our best interest to avoid that. Secondly, I think that AI has an inherent benefit of being very closely linked as a human enhancement. That being said is that it can easily transform a variety of processes or categories, whether that's efficiency, whether that's productivity, whether that's security and other. So I'll equate that to why can we not, or why should we not ignore AI? I'll probably give you the analogy of the internet in the late 90s. Any organization that would have chosen to ignore the internet today would probably not still be here today, right? So, and on Friday I was having a good conversation with some peers, and she came up with an amazing quote, and she said, hey Dan, in today's world, organizations who are ahead of the technology are likely on time, but if you're not, or meaning that you're not ahead of the technology and you're straight on the technology, you're likely already late. So, I don't think we can miss this boat, and I think we have to take it in steps.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I'm old enough to have remembered to have gophered the internet on DOS interface, and I remember when we couldn't ignore it, and the word spread out, this is a new drug, internet. So Gen AI seems to be the same adoption right now among young people. It's the new drug. Yeah. Alain, how do you think the finance industry would be transformed? Yeah. So just, piggyback from that question.
Yeah, I'll start by, I'm happy to be with you today and have that discussion. Can tell you, I was with the board the last day and a half, and every break during lunch at dinner, it was the subject of discussion, yeah. Gen AI, and it's impressive how much people, who were 40 people, how much people have use cases they try and they use in different manners. So it's something that it's easy to use. That's probably one of the main differences. Before we had AI, but we needed specialists to be able to do something with it. But now anyone can benefit from it. From a financial industry standpoint, what we think today is automation of processes, decision-making process, probably really good use cases that we can tap in. And to be more specific, what we look at, personalized financial product, it's use cases we see in terms of finding the right product for the right individual, having, with all the information, analyze the information, have real-time answer for that. So that's one area. For sure, fraud detection and prevention, because the capacity of analyze a large amount of data rapidly, it's probably good use cases where GenAI will bring it at another level with the capacity to analyze a lot of use cases and generate also scenario and make decisions based on that. Risk assessment and management, that's another area where it can be used. We think us at IA, customer service and support, that's a big use case for us. We're going to have the kind of 360 view of the client. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of events. If we build it correctly, we'll be more rapid to make decisions. We'll probably be able to have different answers than having people looking at it. So it's really an area where we're putting a lot of effort. Customer service support, if you think at a contact center agent, being able to get answer, wrap up the call, give insights, even without going in search database, because in real time you will get the information. It's use cases that already work anyway. It's more how we do implement them moving forward. And I'll finish because there are many ones, but financial planning and forecasting, there's already solution that exists on the market in terms of helping doing a good financial plan. I think for me, GenAI will bring it at another level with the ease of use of the technology and the capacity the technology provides in terms of analyzing millions of scenarios rapidly and then giving you the best one that the technology will have find. So I'll say that for us today, we had open to all employees ChatGPT. They can use it in a secure environment. But the idea was, let's try it out. Let's define use cases that make sense, and then we'll be able to select the one that we have more interest in and move forward with them more in a production way than only testing like we do today.
It's interesting that you mentioned NLP, because I think with Gen AI, NLP is more accessible. It's more efficiently trained and can be integrated a lot faster into the use cases.
Yeah.
And I like that you also mentioned the finding the right products for the customer. I think that's kind of speaks to that ecosystem that is also enabled by Gen AI is platforming, kind of open ecosystem for the clients that you are recommending, not just you're able to recommend the right products from your own platform, but also from your whole ecosystem platform with Gen AI and find efficiencies for your own organization through that. Yeah. That's great. Just continuing with use cases, because I think whenever we talk to our clients about Gen AI, it all really comes down to use cases and value orchestration and value realization through use cases. So that's the favorite topic. So I'm not going to get off that topic just yet. So Jean-François, what is, from your perspective with CDPQ, you of course have the trading floor, you have investment decisions. What are the use cases in capital markets and from investment perspective?
Sure. D'abord, merci Zlata. Merci au Forum FinTech pour l'invitation. C'est certain qu'il y a une foule de use cases de l'IA générative dans plusieurs secteurs de l'économie, dont la finance. La Caisse de dépôt de placement du Québec s'intéresse à l'IA, à ses implications sur notre industrie depuis plusieurs années. So let me answer your questions from the perspective of our experience with generative AI. When ChatGPT was put online at the end of last year, early on, we looked at this technology, we analyzed it, and we realized that, as you just said, it will now be able to tackle problems, business problems, for which it was hard or impossible to work on before, because NLP techniques were either not so good or very hard to implement. So we've started to work on a specific use case I'm going to share with you. It's a use case that we thought had enough impact to justify the investment, but without being too complicated. We wanted to see results quickly. So the use case has for objective to improve the efficiency of our analysts. We worked with the equity research team, which produces about 300 notes per quarter, notes that summarize and develop an opinion on the earnings calls of companies. Okay. Our objective here was to help them do their job faster, more efficiently. So we developed with them a tool to which the analyst can ask questions about the earnings calls transcripts. A question in French, and receive an answer in French. We used what we call the RAG technique to do this, retrieval augmented generation. So it really helps, as of right now, the analyst to extract information from the transcripts faster, and it works very well. Now, the next step to this use case, which is still in development, will be for the tool or the robot to kind of do a task similar to what the analyst is currently doing. So summarizing the transcripts and writing the note. Of course, this note won't have the same level of quality than the note that is written by our professionals, because the robot will only have access to the earnings call transcripts and a few documents that would have been selected for their relevance with the company. But while the analyst, the professional, has a much larger knowledge base that he accumulated through the years, but the information that we will gather through this robot will still be good enough to be used, and it will help us to increase dramatically the coverage that we can have. Our analyst team now can cover about 300 companies, but with this technology, we'll be able to cover thousands of companies. Those two examples are not, though, examples where Gen AI is directly integrated into the investment decision, but we can think of, another step to the same use case where we identify trends or causality relationships between information that we've extracted from the transcripts, and then build signals that will help us predict the future returns of assets and integrate it into systematic portfolio strategy. Well, we're not there yet, but I think this is coming soon.
Yeah. Amazing. I hope you all are taking notes, because there's going to be a test at the end on what's the RAG technique. Okay. Retrieval, augmentation, and generation. And I think it's fascinating. I really appreciate how detailed you explained it. The analyst writers is going to be like another screenwriters demonstration for the Hollywood, because there's so many of them, and there's so much content that they have to generate in investment banking. And it's a very direct, very clear use case. Yeah.
And we're not the only one working on that specific use case, by the way.
Yeah. No, it's on the surface, but it's so brilliant. Yeah. By the way, I recently asked my ChatGPT to write a script. I just, and it wrote a big, long script for me. So I was just trying to get in the shoes of those screenwriters that are demonstrating in Hollywood. So Daniel, keeping up with the use cases, back to kind of retail banking and customer service, and HR we haven't mentioned yet. Anything you're working on there?
I think the use cases are going to be limitless with Gen AI. That being said, I can walk you through some of the stuff we're doing within Desjardins.
Yeah.
Within Desjardins, similar to the colleagues, we've taken the use case approach. So we haven't said, hey, by the way, we're going to come up with X strategy around Gen AI.
Yeah.
We're taking it use case by use case, but those use cases that we're selecting are going to be directly linked or correlated with the value or our business intentions. Right, our strategic imperatives. So if something is not linked with our strategic imperative within Desjardins, we're not necessarily going to be trying that type of technology. I'll give you a couple of examples, and they fall into a variety of categories. A category can be around productivity and efficiency. Another category could be around customer experience. Another one around security and the enhancement of security for our customers. I'll take a couple. We're going to be working, for those of you who are not aware, where Desjardins has a healthy number of developers. We're over 2,000 developers within Desjardins. So we provide a healthy amount of code for some of the products that we actually launch to our members and clients. So, and we know that Gen AI is very capable of generating code. That being said can we come and help our development community to actually generate code on behalf of some of our developers so they can either be more efficient, be more productive, produce more code, but ultimately getting more value out to our members and clients. Not only can it generate code, but it can also validate the quality of certain code that goes out to ensure that it's meeting specific standards that we'll set internally. Another example would be around efficiency. We have a number of contact centers that respond to our members and clients, our frontline employees. But we also have internal help desks that respond to those frontline employees. So we're going to be deploying technologies or prototyping technologies that may help us become more productive at the frontline level before we actually make any of this visible to our members and clients. Why? Because we want to test this. So I'll give another example. Within our help desk, 60% of some of the calls we receive for help desk support are typically how-to. All of this is documented in working instructions, available through a variety of our internal websites. Well, we're going to be prototyping to make sure, hey, why don't we put a robot or some type of virtual assistant at the end user frontline employee level so they can actually respond quicker and ultimately get a frontline employee responding quicker for our members and clients. A third would be around general productivity overall. I'm sure a lot of us use email or PowerPoint or any of the tools that we use on a daily basis. Gen AI is fantastic at trying to prepare us on being more efficient. One of the areas we're going to be prototyping as well is seeing how can we make our frontline and all of our 52,000 plus employees more efficient by deploying ChatGPT-like capabilities to prepare us for meetings in advance, generate presentations to give us the key points prior to the meeting. So with a healthy integration to current tool sets, without naming any, with our current environment. That being said, because the cases are limitless, you want to try things that, again, and I'll repeat, that are highly linked to your strategic imperatives. For us, that's making the best and getting everyone and getting every single member and client the best experience possible, right? And ultimately, I'd finish off by saying, I suspect within the next 10 to 20 years, similar to what the colleagues are mentioning, we're going to be elsewhere. But I'm convinced that this is going to be enhancement to our current workforce. So it's not necessarily going to replace our workforces. What it's going to be doing is actually saying, hey, we're going to be seeing a new customer-driven, AI-powered experience. Which is going to allow our workforces to be more nimble and also more focused on complex tasks.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, the efficiencies and the opportunities to repurpose the workforce, but also I love how you talked about the strategic imperative and aligning the technology to strategic imperatives and sticking to that and being very disciplined about it. That's really great. So you covered some of the benefits. Jean-François, are there any other benefits you can think of from your sort of capital markets hat? And if not, then please cover the risks what are some of the organizations that are embarking on the Gen AI journey? What risks and concerns should they have?
Yeah, sure. For the benefits, I think we've talked a lot about productivity and efficiency, and it's all around the same thing. Three amazing capacities of Gen AI. You know, summarizing documents, asking questions on a corpus of documents, and generating original content with a human-like quality. That's great, and that will increase efficiency, allowing our people to do more higher value tasks. In terms of the risk, the first that come to my mind is the risk of using the technology the wrong way. Here we've talked a lot about very relevant or very good use cases, but I've heard of many use cases or potential use cases that that shows a misconception or a misunderstanding of what large language models really are. LLMs are not a calculator, they're not a lawyer, and they're certainly not a knowledge base. And if you start using this technology as your knowledge base, then you'll have, I think, important hallucination problems. The hallucination is when your model presents you as a fact, some stuff that you just invented. And I'm sure we all have our little story about that. Let me share you mine. Mine is with Bing Chat Enterprise that was presenting me as the senior vice president in charge of fixed income at CDPQ, which is not the case. And he even gave me a link to the webpage of CDPQ as a source of information. Well, that's an important risk, I think. And it brings me to challenges. And the first challenge I see is the conditioning the models. Conditioning the models or prompt engineering, how you ask your questions to the model. This is a very important it looks like, well, it's simple, you just ask your question, but it's not simple. You need the specific expertise to be able to ask the question the right way, to have the best possible answer. And asking the right question or asking it the right way is one of the ways to reduce the risk of hallucination. You should ask, very specific questions. In your questions, you should add examples just to show the model, to explain the model what you're looking for. If you want to talk about a very complex topic, you should break it into simpler ones. And don't take the first answer as the best one. Just ask another question. Give more context. Give more context to the conversation, so that the output that you'll have from the model will be the best possible one. Another challenge is, and I will finish with that. Another challenge is allocating your resources the right way. It's very difficult right now to say, well, let's invest into developing a capacity with Gen AI, knowing that maybe in 2-3 months there will be a commercial solution that will replace it, or that will tackle this issue better than what you did. We all want to embark on this journey. The building blocks are not all there, and you're asking yourself, well, should I develop this building block or not? Our approach was to say, well, let's go ahead, let's develop our expertise, but always be aware of what's going on, and be prepared to replace some parts of your systems with commercial solutions that will do a bit better than what you can do internally.
Amazing, very, very great recommendations. Thank you. Yeah, it's. I think every new innovation always comes with risks, and you have to start by analyzing those risks before making big investments. Yeah. So Alain, speaking of that, can you think of steps, or have your organization already taken some steps? What steps should a financial institution that gets on this journey to take to effectively prepare the infrastructure, talent, strategies to really fully leverage the Gen AI technology?
Yeah, I think that the one important part, and it was before Gen AI, because we're doing AI, we're doing AI also, it's the data. we need to have a good data quality, govern the data the right way, because if you're not doing that, it won't work. And there's more bad example of failure with AI because the data was not ready. So we know today that it's really important, and that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time, so need to get prepared. Probably a lot of people are already in action, but for me, it's an important foundation for specific business use cases. And for us also, we separate the embedded Gen AI that it's coming from the vendor that we can use and that can enhance productivity, quality, versus the more competitive advantage use cases where we develop model decision making. So that it's different. That's where we need good data quality if we want to have good decision made by AI. The other one, I think what we're doing now is we started the use of Gen AI through innovation. So really in the mindset that let's try out, let's fail, let's discover what it can do for us, and let's define the real use cases we'll want to bring forward in terms of AI. That will fuel our AI strategy, because we need to get there at one point. We'll need to have a good understanding of where we need to invest, what are the good use cases for us, and invest from there. But we really need to try as we speak, and that's why we have opened it for the employees. Other thing we did, public Gen AI is forbidden. You can access that from the enterprise. So you need the bubble, the secure bubble, where your data remain inside, remain to you, because if not, if you're going public, everything will be available. So that was the first step before opening that, was to find a secure bubble where we can test Gen AI and provide that to employee. I think for us, it's really experimentation. It's really trying that, getting feedback from employee. And in terms of the way we set innovation, every month with the exec, we look at what are the use cases, what are the possibilities, and we decide on which one we want to move forward with. The other aspect for financial institution, what we need to take care of, is the regulator are looking at Gen AI, and everything that is around decision making will be supervised by them. So they have 4 dimensions they will look at. They call it EDGE. It's explainability of model. You need to be able to explain, because there's a black box view, but in terms of the financial institution, will need to be able to explain, which means maybe you're better to have a model that is less performant than another one if you're able to explain, versus a black box that you can explain, because it will be difficult to justify the decision at one point. Governance is key. We need a governance, risk management, supervising the model, making sure over time they develop correctly, because it learns and may adapt and may give good answer today, but bad answer tomorrow if we're not taking care of that. The other one, I talk about it, data and the ethic, because in the data we can have bias, so we need to take care of addressing that as we move forward, so we don't introduce too much bias in the model we're building.
Excellent. Yeah. You've given some good advice, and I'll ask the other panelists now as well. What is one piece of advice that you have for a financial institution or a fintech that is just starting, is behind you and just starting on the path of leveraging Gen AI for business value?
Should I go to go?
Yeah,
okay,
please.
I'm going to be the rebel in the room. I'm going to give you 3, okay? Because I'll be humble enough to say that we've been feeling this and going through some of that pain, because it's technology which is still in its infancy, right? The first thing I'd say is the fuel that runs this machine is your data. Do not underestimate what it takes to understand the data within your own respective organizations. Whether that's the traceability, whether that's the quality of that data, and also the collection of that data. It can be quite time-consuming, and we have an opportunity here to try to not underestimate that. The second thing is around, I'd say we can all get by with a little bit of help from our friends. Joe Cochran, I think I think that was a singer who said that, but don't do it alone. There's, there's firms, there's experts, there's consultants that can help us get by, and we can all learn from each other on the technology. And the last thing I'll say on the subject, or the last piece of advice is, with everything that touches the data, is also related to how, I'm trying to capture my words now in English, but it's around, holy, I forgot my statement. It was around the multidisciplinary teams. Yeah. One, implicate a variety of folks within your organizations, whether that's risk, security, conformity, IT. It's not just one organization that can get this thing done. And it goes hand in hand with those folks. Start small, but start now. Take some risk, right? Some controlled risk within your environments. That would be my advice.
Great, thank you. Jean-François?
I'd say don't build a solution in search for a problem. Be aware of that. The Gen AI is one of the many tech tools that you have in your toolbox now, but those are tools to solve business problems. So solve business problems. Don't just integrate Gen AI.
And I'll add one, because at IE, we involve early the executive and the board. We did training, make them aware that it exists. And I talked to other peers who have difficulty to get buy-in from the board and the executive because people don't understand. So there's a moment where education needs to happen so people understand what it can do. And they will be supporting the use of it if they don't understand that. Because there's so many stories that you can read. It can be on the dark side or the good side, but I think education is key for large organizations to make sure buy-in exists and we can progress.
Yeah, it's the best piece of advice. Thank you. All right, so we'll open it up to questions. We have 5 minutes for questions, and would love to get at least one. There we go.
Thank you. Among the risks that has been mentioned is, of course, the securitization and segregation of data, especially in the financial world. Is there an overall strategy that you want to share to tackle this issue?
I can start. What we started to do 3 years ago was really to define what will be I'll call it the data lake, or the data hub. It's really bring out the data in one environment, secure the environment, and do data governance on it. Because even today, we still have a lot of data warehouse. But if you want good quality, it needs to be well governed. So that we started that, and we need to continue. But for me, if it's not done well, that will prevent using AI in the right way over time, because it's a long journey. It's not something that happened overnight. So it needs to be prepared, and we'll work another couple of years before we have everything centralized. But at least by having that available now, we can decide which data we need for the use case, bring it into the environment, and progress with the use cases.
Very similar for us. So similar to what Alain just mentioned. So it's securing the perimeter, ensuring that there's a clear governance on what goes in, what comes out of that environment, and how we can track that, who has access, who doesn't, and also taking a look at the PRP or our personal information, and also following regulatory guidelines on how and what should be governed internally and externally.
Nothing to add.
Yeah.
Good answers.
Well, I'll take an opportunity to make a plug that when we recently launched the new generation of Watson, which is Watson X, with Watson, which is a suite of AI-enabling solutions with WatsonX.ai, which includes Gen AI, WatsonX.data. Our most important WatsonX.data includes foundation models with our most important differentiator is WatsonX.governance, and that is all around compliance and security, because you cannot start on this journey without the guardrails of compliance and security. So in our solutions, we at IBM, we decided to really focus on that.
It was very interesting to hear the different use cases you all applied. The message is clear. Try it. You just try it on something tangible. How long did it take how long did it take for you to try it? Are we talking days, weeks, months? Has it been a year-long journey? How quickly can you try it and see an impact?
I can start. Maybe for the use case that I've talked about, it was very fast, honestly, because we were using a very limited data set. We were working, on earnings call transcripts, and we had the expertise internally. We had guys that spent their Christmas holiday working on this technology. So when they came back to work in January, they were already ready. They knew what they wanted to do. They tried it, and it was very fast. Honestly, it was very fast. But one thing that I think we should say is that yes, try it, but it really also depends of the size of your organization and of the resources that you have. Because for a very small organization with limited resources, I'd say maybe it's too soon. But for a large organization, I think it's great to start it right now.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I'll say that we have one model that established if you're a smoker or not. It took 3 months to have that use case in production, and today we use that to predict if the person who apply will be or not a smoker. So that's one model, but it's not using GenAI. For GenAI itself, it was just to find a secure environment and open it. But it's not a use case that we do coding or we build, so that was easier to do. But we'll see in the future the one that will really be built for purpose. That will take some time to build, depending if we have the data or not available.
And it's very similar for us. We haven't seen any within days. We've seen anywhere between 6 to 18 weeks, maybe, to get some preliminary results. But I'm sure we can probably do it quicker,
All right, last question.
Thanks for the presentation. My question actually is kind of a little bit philosophical around GenAI. So for decades, particularly in the financial services industry, technology has been expected to be predictable. We're supposed to control it, monitor the performance, be able to support it and justify the outcomes. And all of a sudden, with GenAI, we're supposed to roll out tools that cannot be predictable. From what I know, we cannot measure the performance of an LLM for now. There are no tools for that. And yet, we're pushed towards putting these between the hands of end users with business cases. So I just want to hear from you how you feel about, the coming era whereby in the ecosystem, we're going to be dealing with tools that are, for the first time, unpredictable, and for which we cannot measure performance.
This one, I tend to agree and also disagree. I'll give you an example why I tend to disagree. If we take a tool set like coding, we want predictability in code. If I ask the machine to say, hey, by the way, or generative AI to say, hey, by the way, produce me code that's going to ask the user for a password. Because it's based on natural language understanding, when we speak something, we can come up with 65 different ways of doing the same thing. Same thing with code. So we have to have a sense of predictability within the code. There's going to be sway, there's going to be errors. We have to get better at measuring that. But this is why we're saying go slow, but go quickly at the same time, but go carefully. Because we're not quite sure at 100% what the potential outcomes are either way. So if you miss that boat, I think we're all going to collectively, as a society, miss out on something because of that. But the lack of predictability occurs in certain technologies, but you can measure it. It's just the way that we will start measuring it in the future, is my opinion on the subject.
Yeah. And we're out of time, so maybe I'll just wrap up. Gen AI is not just the technology for the sake of tools, to JF, your point earlier as well. It's a strategy for value creation. So don't start playing with technology if you don't see the pathway to real value creation. And do not start playing with this technology if you do not have the guardrails of responsible AI and security and trust solution that is provided to you with the technology you're using. So I think value creation is really what has to drive everything. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for the distinguished panel. We really appreciate it.